throws it to Gabriel Ferreira, number 7, who's making a run. There's nobody in front of him. Oh, man.
All right, hello everyone, and welcome back to the No Beaters podcast. My name is Gabe, and I'm joined by my co-host Bryan and Nate as always, and we're back for another episode of the podcast. This episode to the new year, I guess. So this episode, we're gonna kind of have more of a chill and open sort of discussion, I guess, in terms of goals. So like goal setting. We're in the new year, and we've all kind of hopefully not had quite the start we were looking for in terms of 2022, but kind of looking ahead to bigger and better things and more positive things in terms of goal setting and what goal setting looks like to us, and maybe kind of help you guys think about what goal setting looks like for you and encourage you to set goals for the new year. So to start off, I guess we'll kind of go through what you guys think of when you, I don't know how you guys approach goals. I know that talked about what a goal is in school, I'm sure, but I know everyone has their sort of way of approaching and setting a goal. So how do you guys come up with goals, or maybe have you guys even thought about goals for the new year, or what do you think?
It's kind of hard to project a little bit. I think like most of any goal I'm setting right now, and like it's kind of been the same way through like most of the pandemic, although it hasn't been as effective as it should have been. Like I'm trying to think like farther out, like, and I think I end up procrastinating with all that stuff. Like I'm gonna lose weight, I'm gonna run 10K or bike God knows how many kilometers, or do 100 push-ups a day. Like I'm so bad at like doing anything like that. Like anything I'm thinking about right now, I'm just like, I'm projecting for like hopefully summertime. Like maybe we could do something in the summer, because the next couple months it's like kind of stay indoors, avoid any close contact with other people, and that's about it right now. But yeah, I'm looking forward to the summer because I'm looking forward to playing Quidditch again. That's kind of obvious at this point. I don't know about you guys. What about you, Nate?
So for me, like when it comes to goal setting, I usually do more like long term than short term, and kind of work my way back with like smaller steps to achieve that bigger goal, and like which is more likely to be achieved later in the future because it is a bigger goal, so it's more long term. But when it comes to like New Year's resolutions, we don't set those because it's kind of just like the calendar just like flipped basically to a new year. Like it's only like yesterday was 2021, if today was like New Year's Day, so it's not like you can achieve so much in like 24 hours sort of thing. Like it takes weeks and weeks to build a new habit or to break an old habit. So like at the start of the new year, I'll probably set some like goals of things I want to accomplish, either like academically or in sport or just business wise. Then along with that, maybe like some habits I want to build or some habits I want to break, knowing that it'll take longer than like a day, that some people try to like implement a new goal into that short period of time. So for me, I'll have like a goal or like a habit I want to either build or break. They'll probably like, okay, let me accomplish this, but like in March or April sort of thing. Instead of like making that switch right away. But yeah, it depends on goals. Like on the goals, it can maybe be something like simple as like waking up at a specific time each morning, and that's kind of just like building my way towards like a specific time. So like right now I want to wake up at 7 a.m. just have more hours in the day to get more work done with like school and like my business and everything. So let's say for example I'm waking up at like 9:30, 10 o'clock because just coming off of the Christmas break. So I kind of work my way back. Okay, let's wake up like 9 o'clock this week, then following week let's wake up 8:30. Kind of work my way back that way, just like slowly build that goal. And so just like, okay, we're waking up at 7 a.m. tomorrow. And that's kind of harder to maintain. So yeah, all depends really on the goal. Yeah.
You said something there that like reminded me of like what I saw like for like a week on TikTok of everyone condemning New Year's resolutions. People were just like, no more New Year's resolutions. They're dumb. And I'm like, yeah, they are kind of dumb. I never stick to them anyways. Like I always noticed like I really only started going to the gym like last couple of years, and like it was always like, oh, January is the worst, and it's just tons of people, but then it dies out quickly after that, and it's like it's about being sustainable. And like, yeah, you're right. Like, don't go full force into it. Like, take those little steps. It makes so much of a difference.
Yeah,
So,
it's also too like people have the notion that they have to wait until like the calendar year starts for them to implement a goal or start or try to make a new habit. Where it's like, if you have the goal in mind or the habit in mind, like December 20th, like start then. Kind of give yourself a head start, I guess, in a sense where when January 1st does come, you kind of already have that. Let's say it's a habit you want to build up. You kind of already have some foot in, I guess, foot under your feet and towards like reaching that habit or maintaining that habit. So,
Well, what is
yeah,
it? Best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago. Second best time is now.
it's
Like,
now. Yeah,
just start. Like,
Yeah.
there's no like, oh no, I gotta wait a week and a day. Like,
yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Two things, like a couple things on that. So on the TikTok front, I saw one that was really funny, where the guy is kind of going into the gym, and I can't remember that. Like, it was like a really funny song. It was like something along the lines of like it's like a new year or whatever, and he walks into the gym and it's like December 29th and it's like empty, and then the next time he's like, there's a lot of people here that didn't. The song is like, there's a lot of people here that I didn't recognize from before or something like that.
Yeah.
It was really funny. Like,
Oh,
kind of like
so
bad people that
accurate.
are like just hopping in the gym, like the next, like literally the next calendar day, kind of going into 2022, which I thought was funny. But I did like what you said there, Nate, and Ryan kind of touched on it as well in terms of like long-term goal setting. So I think I agree in the sense that New Year's resolutions, the reason why I think they fail is because it's too focused on like the end product,
End goal.
the end outcome. Yeah, like the outcome. It's not focused so much on the process, and we're so, like, it's side, we're so focused on like that end outcome that we kind of fail to realize that it takes the process that we should really focus on. So there's a book I read, highly recommend for everyone to read it. It definitely changed how I kind of approach goals. You guys might have heard of it, Atomic Habits by James Clear. It's a fantastic book. He breaks down how he's basically breaks down his goals into like kind of creating like mini habits, and like all these habits kind of lead towards the end goal. So if your goal is to lose 10 pounds or like go to the gym and be more active, like instead of focusing on like the end like outcome, which is the 10 pounds, kind of focusing on developing habits to get you there. So if it's waking up, like I said, Nate, like waking up at 7 o'clock in the morning so you can get up early enough that you have time to go to the gym before you go to work at 9 o'clock. Like just like kind of starting there and forming that habit, and then from there going, okay, now that I have that habit, how can I stack on another habit to that? So one of the things he talks about in the book is a thing called habit stacking, where if you have something in place, so let's say you're an early bird and you naturally wake up at 7 o'clock, but you want to get in the habit of like washing your face in the morning or something like that, like kind of setting out things beside where like you would normally go. So if you get up early and your phone is right beside your bed and you normally check your phone in the morning, maybe put like a face cloth beside your phone to kind of remind you, okay, like now I'm gonna go wash my face, and like kind of stacking habits that way. I thought that was a really cool point. But yeah, so in the book he talks about I think it's like four or 5 points to make kind of goal setting and habit setting a lot easier. So like one of them was making habits easy to remember, stuff like that. So yeah, so that's kind of how I approach goal setting. Instead of focusing on like the outcome, like I want to lose X amount of weight, or I want to save this amount of money, or like the typical goals you hear people talk about New Year's resolutions, kind of focusing on the like smaller habits to get you there, and then by the end of the year reflecting on what habits you actually were able to form, and then kind of going from there in terms of like those long-term goals. So that's how I kind of approach it. But
Do you guys use any like tools in particular? Because like I was, as we were talking about that, I literally looked over because I like cleared off my desk before we recorded, and what I had on my desk was one of my little black books, and like I have them like up there on one of my shelves, and I think I have like 5 more up there right now, and this is the 6th one, and all I do is just go through notes and like, oh, I want to do this, like this is what I want to buy from Amazon, like I want to save up for this, or I want to work toward this, and I just have like, I think one page was like push-ups, and I just like kept tallying like 5 by 5 by 5, and I was trying to get to like 1,000. I can't remember where I ended up stopping at one point, but it's like I was like, actually writing it down makes such a difference to me. Like I've tried using my phone or like apps before, and I just completely, it's like, oh yeah, I forgot I had this app. Like it just doesn't mean anything to me. Like a physical thing is actually like so useful for me for once.
Yeah, it's also good to like be able to track your progress, because sometimes you'd be like, okay, this like goal's not really working out. Like I'm not sure if I'd be able to like it's hard to like see how much like how far you've come from like starting a goal until like let's say a month or two down the road, like how far you've reached at that point. So like having some sort of tool, if it's like writing something down. I use my notes app on my Apple devices. Like I have like almost 700 notes. A lot of it's recipes, but also like goals and other stuff. But like having some sort of like tracking system where you can see, okay, like I actually achieved this much in this amount of time, it kind of is self-motivated in a sense. Because it shows like how far you are or how close you are to reaching like the end goal that you seek from the start.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree. I also use the notes app on my phone, but I don't know. I think that's one thing I've kind of written down here that I want to focus on this year is trying to get away from my phone more because I'm like, there's just everything is so convenient now that it's on your phone that like I literally use my phone for everything. So it's like whether checking time or like just everything, and you just get sucked into it. So for me, I'm kind of trying to get away from that. So like I have a watch, so I check time on my watch instead of having to go on my phone, and just trying to make things a little bit less convenient so you're not getting sucked into it as much. So instead of one thing I've kind of want to focus on this year is kind of getting away from because for me personally, I'm a big list guy. I like making lists and trying to like knock off things off my list. I love like scratching things off the list and getting things done that way. But yeah, so instead of using the notes app on my phone, just having like a mini journal or something on the write a to-do list at the beginning of the day. That's something I've kind of been working on over the past few months. Part of my morning routine is when I get up in the morning, having like a to-do list and kind of knocking off things from that. But yeah, you just have to kind of find what works for you. Like everyone's different. Some people, like me, like make to-do lists. Some people just kind of rehearsing things verbally. Like everyone's different, and it kind of good starting place is figuring out what kind of like learner you are too. Like so for me, I kind of found out that I was more of a visual person. So that's why doing the list was super helpful for me because I actually see what my day looked like. Some people just don't really operate with it, and some people just like kind of like know everything in their head. But I find that for me, really writing things down is super effective because it's a little bit less of a cognitive burden on me throughout the day. But yeah, kind of trying to figure out what works for you and then going with it. And then yeah, going from there. But
That makes me laugh, Gabe, when you stuck with the types of learning, because like I got in trouble a couple times in university because I'm very much like an auditory like learner for some subjects, and like I'm just a purely visual learner for others. Like I could sit there like in like I always sat near the front of class, and I'd like depending on where I was, I'd sometimes like just not nod off, but I'd just sit there and just close my eyes and listen. And like I had like a prof just like um like try to spook people because it was like an early morning class, and I'm sitting there and I'm like, yeah, I heard every word you said. Like I'm just paying attention. I'm just like, I don't have to look at this. I can just hear you and I can immediately remember it. I didn't take notes. Another class, like headphones in, didn't listen to a word of what the prof is talking and just taking notes like chemistry, I think, the entire time. I just take notes. I'm like, yep, I remember it now. But like if I switch that for some classes, I wouldn't have retained a thing. It was so weird because like some subjects I'm just like, oh yeah, that makes total sense to me doing it this way. Something completely different, nope, can't do that. It just doesn't work.
Like it always annoyed me when profs, probably more so in high school, but maybe sometimes university as well, where they force you to take notes. But it's like a course where you like for me, I'm more auditory. Like I'll remember anything that a prof says, and like whenever I do like a test or something, and like the question refers to like something that the prof said directly in class, I'm able to like quote it word for word. So like whenever profs like force us to take notes, like if they see people not taking notes, like they get mad at us. But it's like if I'm taking notes, like it's just redundant or like it's unnecessary because I'm not ever gonna refer back to them.
My
Like I don't think I've ever taken notes
my
at all in university.
my grade 11 chemistry teacher was always like telling me, is like, take the headphones out, take the headphones out. I'm like, miss, I just want to listen to
Yeah.
my music and I'm taking notes. Like I can show you. That's how I'm focusing. I did the same thing grade 12, got told off in grade 12. I go to first year uni and like my chem grade was like okay. I go to first year uni, took all my notes. I did phenomenal in that class. And it was the same thing with biochem. Like I did great in biochem, but I just sat there with my headphones in. But for other classes like math, I can't do that. I just have to like close my eyes and listen, like and just visualize everything in my head, and it works. But like I remember like teachers telling me like, no, you have to take notes, and I'm like,
Yeah.
it like cool, I can do that off a slide, or I can like read the slide or do whatever, like highlight stuff. But like listening to you talk for this, like it's not doing it for me. Like it doesn't help.
Yeah, that's funny. We'll also shout out the kinesthetic learners too, because I remember, as much as I am kind of like more of a visual person, like, I also do have like kinesthetic element to me as well. So like, for example, in anatomy, like whenever I was having like an anatomy exam, I would always have to like, because like they would always ask you like function of certain muscles, so, like always having to like going like go like this, and like I remember the one it was our final exam for anatomy. And it was honestly one of the funniest exams. Like actually, if you were like a third party person like walking into that exam hall, I can only imagine what some of like the proctors were like thinking, because like you could just see like you would look around and everyone just be kind of going like this and like touching everywhere. Like some people were like raising their arms, like raising. It was hilarious to watch because yeah, people just trying to remember where insertion points are and just like function. It's just it's pretty funny. But yeah, it's just like I said, just figuring out what works for you and just like rolling with that sort of learning style is kind of a good starting point for goal setting.
A buddy of mine, Gabe, what we had in our engineering building was like these little rooms that were like no bigger than like 3 arm like wingspans long and like a wingspan and a half across. But we'd like shove like 6 people in there and like just do all our equation on the whiteboard and teach each other stuff. One of my buddies could not sit still for the life of him, and he'd always have to be like standing and like doing arm motions for like super theoretical like engineering like analysis stuff. So it's like super theoretical math, and it's like, okay, I don't know. And he went into the exam and was just like standing and like moving his arms around. Everyone's like, what the hell is he doing? He just did good. That's how he learned some of that stuff. And I'm like, I totally get what you mean with a kines. Like I did that in grade 12, and just like you just like poke and prod yourself trying to remember like bones and muscles and stuff. This guy had the same thing, but with high level imaginary math. It's crazy.
No, that's funny. That's awesome. So yeah, that's a good starting point in terms of goal setting. So hopefully maybe that helps you. Maybe you learn a thing or two for how you approach goal setting in general. But yeah, I'll kind of transition, I guess, into more like sort of general or goals you may have, or we may have, the 3 of us, whether it's personal. And then we'll talk about a little bit of podcast type goals, and then we'll just kind of finish up with like a random sort of chat about Tiegate as well. We'll finish with that. It's kind of like a more lighthearted podcast. So I don't know. Yeah, guys, do you have any sort of personal goals you want to share with listeners for this year based on sort of what we talked about in terms of how you approach goal setting?
Mine's very simple, and I think this is pretty common amongst the 3 of us, and wanting to play Quidditch again.
No, I'm good.
I'm joking. You're getting old, like just like sitting here podcasting away. But like, yeah, it's just like I'm so like wanting to get my hands like on a ball and just start throwing it again, and I really don't have the means to do that right now. Like I want to go down and join the national team in Peru or Brazil, and I'm waiting on announcements for that and seeing what's happening there. But like MLQ, I hope Canada can participate this year. Like,
yeah,
I don't know. It's like that's all I want to do right now. Just go out and play Quidditch against like people I don't know. Preferably not get my butt whooped by Americans, but you know,
True.
I'll settle for what I can get as far as that.
Yeah, for me, it's probably playing MLQ specifically, since we did have a couple tournaments with Quidditch Canada in the fall. But yeah, I guess like this summer will be like 2 years since we've played against any American teams, like any games that counted for MLQ. So it'd be pretty nice to go back down on like those Super Series trips and play against some American teams. Hopefully not get destroyed, since we're in a pretty tough division as the Ottawa Blackbirds, but just be able to compete, not necessarily internationally, but just like as a team, like representing at least part of Canada and just playing like high level Quidditch, meeting new people. Yeah, kind of that nature.
Yeah, I kind of got to go along the same lines. Yeah, I just want to be able to kind of play with the Blackbirds this year and actually like make it out to practices and stuff. I think I feel a little more safe given some of the sort of announcements, which I'll kind of bring up here as well. MLQ announced today that, where is it here? Booster requirements. So given the rapid increase in Omicron, et cetera, MLQ made an announcement that they're going to expect players to have the booster vaccination status for the upcoming season. So that makes me feel a lot more comfortable with sort of that season. So yeah, like I said, I'd love to be able to play with the Blackbirds again. I know I wanted to last year. I just never really was able to make it to practices, et cetera, just because just didn't really feel safe. But yeah, really looking forward to being able to kind of play with Blackbirds this year and actually get to compete against some American teams, hopefully. So that's kind of a goal for Quidditch. And then in terms of personal goals, one that I share is I'm finally getting my business off the ground. So I've been talking about it for a while. I'm now finally finished school, have my business I'm going to be working on. So I've been working on like logos and that kind of stuff. So I'm looking forward to getting that off the ground this summer. So that's more of a personal goal. But yeah, like I said, the number one goal is just being able to finally be able to see some friends and play Quidditch and do cool shit. So
do cool shit.
Like,
absolutely.
Personal goals, I have a few, but I'll share a couple.
Share any?
Yeah. So like this semester is my final semester of my second undergraduate degree for nutrition and food. So the plan is to hopefully do like an internship with Sick Kids Hospital, working in like their pediatric unit in relation to like nutrition and all that stuff. So that's kind of like my big academic goal that's more so later in the year because that starts in the fall. But if people do follow me on Instagram, I do also like a lot of recipe development with like cooking and baking. Also like specialize in like vegan recipes, but I do want to delve more into like food photography and kind of improve my skills with that because I do actually shoot my pictures using an iPhone XS. So I do have like a DSLR camera and I'm getting a lens for that hopefully soon so I can like start shooting more professionally and maybe pick up some clients for that as well. So it's kind of exciting. And then also continue to grow my vegan donut business. So if people want donuts, you know who to contact and hopefully do some like merch as well with that for like advertising and whatnot.
Absolutely.
Nice.
Yeah.
It's a big year.
I'm like I said, like most of my Quidditch stuff is just like go out and play Quidditch. I think like I kind of need to focus on myself and like getting healthy. Not particularly unhealthy, but I kind of want to like run a 10K that I said I was going to do last year and didn't follow through with. Like gotta follow through with that sort of stuff. I want to get a new job / promotion that I've been very close to, but you know, pandemic sucks, and I'm within 4 months from now I should have a green belt in Lean Six Sigma, which is a very fancy way of, hey, you're good at problem solving and math, and here you go, go help people and businesses, and then hopefully work toward a black belt. So I could say that I have a black belt with 0 experience with karate. But yeah, like it's most of my stuff I think I'm just kind of slowly getting to, and I think a lot of it's going to come down just persistence and telling myself to get out of bed and go do something, because that's the only way I'm going to end up doing it at this point. But yeah, it's I don't know. I think 2022 starting off rough, but I think only way is up at this point. Just get better.
Yeah, as Shania Twain would say, can only go up from here, right?
Oh.
But yeah, no, it's funny though because we all like I said like having like when it comes to goal setting, like having the vision, which I think we all like kind of alluded what our sort of vision is for the year, but again, like not kind of getting caught up in terms of like, okay, that's the way I have to get to that. Just kind of like going, okay, from there, that's sort of like I said, I start there, like where I kind of want to get to, but then from that, it's not just going, okay, like just that's what I want to get to. Let's just go at it. It's like there's a plan that goes into it. So based on like what all of you guys have said, I'm sure you guys have sort of a plan, just like baby steps, and like each day getting 1% better to eventually get to that point. And even if you fall short, who knows, maybe you overshoot where you're trying to get to. just again having like sort of a plan and process and focusing on the process, maybe not so much the end goal. The end goal kind of helps you stay motivated and kind of grounded in terms of where you're going, but really kind of becoming obsessed with the process, kind of like how I would approach the goal setting. So it's awesome that you guys have like sort of your vision for the year. And like you said, Bryan, it can get kind of tough at times because it's like, oh my God, that's like a huge thing. But my mom always told me like take it one day at a time. And it's a good reminder. I know it's super cliche, but that's something that I was kind of thinking about too when I have a big goal that I've set out for myself, and that's an outcome focused thing. Is just really kind of breaking down it one day at a time and just trying to get 1% better. Definitely helps me. But
also like expect setbacks as well. Like don't expect it to.
Yeah,
like,
oh yeah, for sure.
Every day, but like it could be like 3 steps forward one day, no steps the next day, then 5 steps back the next day. But as long as the end of the year it's like a net positive, that you can call that a success, I guess.
Yeah, for sure. There's that picture I love that where it's like I forget what the saying is, but it's basically like a picture where the start and the finish is where you're trying to get to, and it's like a straight line. That's just like everyone expects, but the reality is like the actual road to get there is like kind of like all wavy. There's one that's all wavy. There's also the other one that's like there's like the river, there's like mountains, and it's like kind of all over the place for you actually get to the final destination. So to keep that in mind. It's not always going to be, and it very seldom is just like a straight line to success. Like it definitely takes its toll in terms of ups and downs. So
for anyone who watches a Good Place out there, it's very Jeremy Bearimy. If anyone, you guys know that reference, Nate? Yeah,
the show,
yeah. There's, for Gabe, if you haven't watched it, or anyone else, there's a scene in there. It's not really spoiling anything, but it's they try to explain the concept of like how time works, and instead of a straight line, they describe it as something called Jeremy Bearimy, which looks like the word Jeremy Bearimy as like a signature, but all in cursive, and then it like loops back on each other and then like connects at the bottom. And they're like, he's like, yeah, this is how we kind of thought how like time works. Sometimes it goes forward, sometimes it goes back, sometimes it loops around itself. And one of the characters is just looking at it like absolutely like how do you explain this? And there's a little eye in there at one point, and it's like, how do you explain the dot in the eye? And it's like, oh yeah, sometimes we call that Tuesdays. And you sit there and you're like, it's such like they did such a great like just rendition with that show of just like absolutely throwing philosophy like at the wall and just messing with people. But yeah, definitely recommend.
Cool. So yeah, it's our sort of personal and then we'll talk a little bit more like sort of podcast goals as well, like just from our individual perspectives in terms of how we see the podcast as well. But yeah, like we've kind of alluded to like beginning of the season, like we're always trying to improve, always trying to continue to produce content. Like the three of us love talking about Quidditch, and until we get sick of it, we will continue doing that. But yeah, I just kind of wanted to open the forum in terms of what you guys kind of want to see with the podcast from our perspective, and then we'd love to hear from you guys as well in the comments. And just feel free to message us too. Like this is more of a chill sort of recording of this podcast, so like we're not as structured as maybe some of the other episodes, but yeah, don't hesitate to reach out to us as well, like shooting us a message and saying like, hey, like we'd love to see you guys do this to the podcast or whatever. But opening up the floor with you guys in terms of what you guys want to see with the podcast maybe this year. Is there sort of a goal in terms of like our subscriber numbers are important to you, or like just like maybe some sort of content we're creating with the podcast, like social media? Like, is there anything in particular that you guys are kind of looking forward to this year with the podcast?
I think it's probably more of a long-term goal, but definitely see improvements, I guess, as the year goes on. I would be like becoming like the podcast where like it's the go-to for anything related to Quidditch, I guess, outside of like Quidditch Canada's website or their Facebook page. Like kind of be like the place where people come tune in and kind of get the big news going on, mainly in Quidditch Canada, not necessarily like on the pitch news, but it could also be like off pitch. And also some other international stuff if it's regarding like MLQ or USQ or any other organization in the IQA. But definitely like being like the go-to for like Canadian Quidditch, and just like a place where people can like come on, talk about topics that they have on their mind that they want to talk about, and kind of giving them a platform as well. And kind of just being like an outlet and like a resource for people to use within the Quidditch community up north.
Yeah, I have one thing. I guess maybe like 1.5, but it's not even super realistic, and I have no clue how to accomplish it at this point. But I think it's just a fun goal / idea that I really hope 2022 it becomes feasible in some way. I want to be able to record a podcast live in person, or at some point somehow record something for the podcast, like an interview in person with another person. Like do it at a tournament, or do something where like, hey, this isn't on Google Meets or Zoom or whatever platform. Like we typically use Google Meets, but like whatever platform online, like, hey, let's get the camera out and like record stuff properly and have in-person fun, because I think that'd be sick.
Yeah, no, I agree. Like we talked about it before, and I think the three of us kind of agreed that when we were kind of rebranding the podcast, and we wanted to kind of really focus on the Canadian side of it. So not that we aren't going to talk about MLQ and the odd USQ thing here and there, but just given the fact that this is kind of like more of a hobby thing for us right now, and we're all kind of working in school and stuff like that. We don't necessarily have the time to sit there and watch like additional USQ games and like be like the Quidditch podcast for everything. So that's why we kind of niche down into Canadian Quidditch, because that's what we're really passionate about. That's what we're part of, and that's what we really understand. So that's why we kind of want to focus on that. But yeah, I think for me, like kind of part of it is just like we said, Brian, just to really be able to interview and like do like a live sort of thing would be awesome. I think part of the frustration right now is just because we haven't really been able to see any like real live Quidditch or like be part of it that way. So that would be kind of my goal for this year, just hopefully being able to actually be part of an actual live event and like connect to interview pitch side, or being able to do like commentary for some of the games, and doing like a podcast recording between sort of thing with some of the fans or whatever. That would be like an awesome thing to be able to do. And yeah, one thing I also really love to be able to do is I remember, and I know we've talked about it before, but like being able to sort of highlight a tournament beforehand, and like doing before, sort of like highlights before a tournament kind of thing, and like highlighting certain key players and being able to introduce people that maybe don't get as much recognition within the Quidditch community, or like a up and coming kind of player, and like do a highlight. I think it was you, Brian, that had originally done it before, but I remember my first year there was like that like not a blog post, but there was like an article that was written for tournaments that would highlight like certain rookie players to look out for, like something like that, like something that's really hype, that really gets people excited about Quidditch again in Canada. So doing something along those lines, but like doing it as a podcast form and being able to like record it in one day and like almost like release it the next day before a tournament, so people can kind of like the morning of, or getting all hyped up and listening to the podcast, like a short sort of whatever, listening about like certain players to look out for. Like something like that would be really awesome to be able to do. But again, it kind of relies on us being able to actually have Quidditch to watch and talk about. So I'm really hoping that we'll be able to get to that this year. Yeah, just like constantly kind of growing the podcast, continually improving the content in terms of the video and potentially audio podcast forms. So continually improving like our mic quality and audio quality and that kind of stuff. But yeah, just like I said, just really being able to hopefully talk about Canadian exclusive Quidditch, and we'll see. Like I said, we'll see what we can do this year with MLQ. I think that'll be a good starting point in terms of being able to talk more about Canadian Quidditch and actually being part of games. And if we're able to actually get out to like pitches and like find ways that we can record quality, like I know we have representation from both Canadian teams in MLQ. So whether it means like trying to find a way that you, Brian, can do something with the Raiders and like getting audio and video footage there, and then between Nate and I finding a way to get something with the Ottawa Black Bears, going to be really cool. A cool way to kind of highlight the Canadian side of MLQ for people that are unable to see it on the US sides. Lots of different sort of like middle goals, but again, it's all kind of tough because of COVID, unfortunately. But I'm just trying to stay positive and like kind of look out from there. So,
like to add on to that point, like with MLQ, like it'd be pretty cool to like do like sort of like a docu series of like, let's say we're playing like Quidditch this summer. Like Brian would probably focus on the Raiders, and you and I like on the Black Bears, and kind of just like doing like a little documents, like a docu series, like you introduce some of the players, some of the returning players, kind of get like some of the storylines going into the season, and sort of like those interview type, I guess like the confessional, like talking head sort of like things where like people kind of, like the season's going on, practices are going on, and kind of like have like those interviews on the side. And like, yeah, the storylines throughout the season would be pretty cool to kind of document.
Yeah, absolutely. That sounds sick to me. Like it means in-person stuff. I'm for it. For the record, I've mentioned those things. I was not the person who wrote them. I would love to get them started again in some capacity, though. So I'm pretty sure there's like I've seen somewhere like there's a text to speech thing on Google, where what is it, Google Docs now. So you can like basically like push a thing and just like if you can get it, we like record with headphones, but like if you can get it to record through your computer onto like a Google Doc and you just space out like, oh, this person talked, then this person talked, then this person talked. Like that'd be so cool because it just make everything like, oh, we don't even have to type it all out and manuscript it. You just let the computer do it and do a couple grammar checks and boom, you're good.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, that's kind of like our sort of broader goals for the podcast. Like I said, don't hesitate to reach out to us. We're always open to ideas in terms of content for the podcast. Like I said, right now it's tough just because we aren't able to really focus exclusively on Quidditch Canada type stuff because we just haven't had any games. But we're always trying to find a Canadian spin on things. So if there's something you want to talk about within the community that maybe you think isn't getting enough traction or you're just really passionate about, we'd love to hear from you and have you on the podcast to do an episode. So yeah, and to wrap up then, I guess any other sort of random goal things or funny stories you want to wrap up the podcast with, guys? I know, Brian, you were talking about Tiegate as well, right?
I want to talk about Tiegate. So I'm not sure, like Nate, you know what kind of happened in the general terms, right, of all this? Or have you been following?
I know because of watching the Steve Dangle podcast last night where they explained it there. So that's why I know.
Okay.
But,
So yeah, I remember I was following this thing. I didn't get to stay up and watch all of it, but I saw like the playthrough and I knew the context of everything heading like up to that point. So for anyone who hasn't followed the NFL like as like much as other people have, I haven't been super consistent. But this is week 18. So this year they added an extra week of games, more revenue, more fun, blah 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 blah. Basically, to break it down, there was a lot of playoff implications, and the Jacksonville Jaguars have been garbage this year. They are like the worst team by far. All the wins they've got are completely by luck. They were last year. They should have been last the year before that. Their coach Urban Meyer, like, just kind of general scumbag. I'll say that much. Look it up for yourself.
Say the least.
first head coach, I think, to have a multi-year contract and then get fired before the end of his first year, which is like insane. But they have the first overall pick from last year, who's like a really good quarterback from college, except he's been bad this year because he has no one to play with, basically. And they're playing against Indianapolis Colts. Indianapolis just needs one win, and they basically make it through to the playoffs, and then like the last playoff spot is basically fought over by a couple teams. Indianapolis loses to the worst team in the league, and somehow this opens up a floodgate of possibilities. So, first thing that happens is Pittsburgh plays Baltimore, and the winner gets to go to the playoffs. Pittsburgh won in overtime. Cool. However, here's the problem. There's one more game, and it was between the Oakland Raiders, which I believe will soon be the Las Vegas Raiders, and the LA Chargers. LA Chargers, good young quarterback, kind of still growing. Raiders, kind of so-so. Okay? Here's where it gets really interesting. Do you know in football you can actually tie? You can end a game in a tie. So it's super strange, super unlikely. Maybe like one happens every year. But what someone realized was that if this game between the Raiders and the Chargers ends with a tie, both teams make the playoffs. So what do you think the best strategy would be at that point if you want to guarantee yourselves the playoffs?
Take a knee
Tie.
every play.
Take a knee and tie. Just flat out. To all the conspiracy theories of people like, maybe just take a tie. Like, kneel every single down, turn it over to the other team. Gentlemen agreement. Oh, you're kneeling? I'm gonna kneel too. And do that for 60 minutes. One, it would be hilarious. Two, I would love to see commentators try to talk 60 minutes of football. Which just watching kneeling. And three, the playoff implications of this is realistically, there's nothing stopping them rule wise to say that you can't do this. They are ultra competitive athletes. So unfortunately, that's not exactly what happened. They played a game, and I think there was like a 8-point difference with, I don't know, like 6 minutes left or something, whatever it was. And LA went down the field with multiple fourth downs, and they went for like the play because that's the only thing they could really do. And they kept getting first downs over and over to the point of they're finally able to get a touchdown and scored the 2-point conversion, sending the game into overtime in a tie. So in this scenario, because it's so unlikely, in the one scenario that was like all they need to do is tie, everyone suggested kneeling. They ended up making to the like overtime anyways without following that. And both teams went for a field goal. And at that point, basically there was like 38 seconds left or something. And where Oakland was, it would have been a 57-yard field goal, which is like super difficult. And I mentioned before about the whole Jaguars being bad situation. This is myriad with the fact that fans are so upset with this team that they showed up with clown wigs on to mock their team because they were so awful. They were so awful that the main sponsor, who had a $2.3 million contract with the Jaguars, sued the Jaguars because they were pissed off that they were getting bad publicity from being associated with this team that they signed a contract with, who brought their or had their fans come in clown wigs. You can't make this stuff up. And because of all that, all these people were betting for the Jaguars to win. Because they're like, why not? I'll throw $5. Super unlikely. Gabe, do you know what a parlay is?
Yep.
So what's a parlay for everyone listening who doesn't know?
So it's like where you can combine like a money line outcomes. Like if you could parlay like the Jaguars and the Raiders, or like, you know what I mean? Like you can combine certain bets, and by doing that, you kind of decrease the odds of the outcome happening. So you'd have to have all those outcomes happen to win the bet. So instead of betting $5 or doing like a system sort of bet where you bet like, okay, $5 on the Jaguars winning and then $5 that the Raiders win. If you combine the two, you decrease the odds, which therefore increases like the potential outcome if you were to win.
Yeah, it's bets on a bet. Like you're taking multiple successive bets, and everything has to pay off. So people quickly realized with this whole, hey, maybe on Sunday night that we're gonna have these two teams tie it out because they might just do it. Because why not? Let's bet on the Jaguars to win, and let's bet on a tie. Jaguars won that morning. And then, because of that, with Indianapolis losing, Pittsburgh won, which meant the only way for both these teams to get in and secure a spot is to do the tie. You could definitely risk it and go for the win and get in, but the tie guarantees, like, hey, you're in, I'm in, like, this is mutually beneficial. So people bet like $5, $10, $20 on the Jaguars winning and a tie in that last game, and there was payouts of like tens of thousands of dollars because you get like one tie a season. Like I think Pittsburgh had the only other tie, which forced this scenario to be like, hey, we need a tie. And because they tied, like two high teams tied against each other, they'd like beat out the tiebreaker or whatever and move on. But because of this whole thing, they ended up going into the thing with 38 seconds left. And somehow there was like a rush downfield that like Oakland got another 10 yards. And with, I don't know, seconds remaining as the clock died out, they kicked a field goal and it was good. And it ruined all these people's bets that could have made people were joking. And like Nate knows from Steve Dangle podcast that where they were talking about this on Monday. There's all the talk about Biden canceling student debt. This would have canceled student debt. There was bookies who were looking at losing millions and millions of dollars.
They were basically crapping their pants.
They
like,
were they were seriously scared over this ridiculous scenario that started with clown wigs and a lawsuit against the Jacksonville Jaguars and ended up with an almost possible like Neil versus Neil like game with a final second overtime field goal. As someone who's not a big football fan and has been following the football season so far this year, I don't think I've ever imagined a more ridiculous scenario to play out in one day. I don't know. I think I need to get into sports betting at this point because why not?
Well, I mean, yeah, like even like imagine if you even put like $5 on the Jaguars winning. I'm sure that would have been a decent payout too. I don't know what the odds were in that game, but I mean,
the math was like if you bet 1,000, not 1,000, 100, it was like 50K. So it was like kind of like 500 times. So like you put $1,000, you're getting 500 grand. Like
the Jaguars winning that game. Wow.
Because
both things happen. So like with this, like the odds of that, like
with both
crazy.
things.
No, that's crazy.
Yeah, the parlay was insane.
But the Jaguars winning in itself was also such a crazy scenario because Indianapolis was a legitimate like playoff team. They were right on the edge. They were just in a tough division.
7, I think.
Yeah, and they were in a tough division, and that's about it. That's all that kind of prevented them. Like I think it's the Chiefs in their division, and like a couple other teams, but like they were a good team. Their quarterback's kind of sussy. He came from Philadelphia and is super inconsistent, but they have like the second best running back of the year, who just like I think he broke the record for most rushing touchdowns in a game. Like ridiculously low scenario happens. Another game happens overtime. Oh, here's the perfect scenario, and it's served up on a platter. Like, how many times in Quidditch do we see like we always talk on like sidelines? Oh, well, like, hey, if they throw this game, they get a better like position or something. Like we talk about it, but it's never realistic. And like no one's gonna do it because you're just kind of seen as a dickhead at that point, like on the sidelines, or like if you're the team who actually pulls it off, like people don't respect it. But this is like a professional thing. You get money for going to the playoffs. You get money and a chance at a Super Bowl. Like, and unfortunately, Los Angeles Chargers, not San Diego anymore.
I'm happy it didn't actually work out because I'd be pretty mad if I did like find like $50 just to bet on. So I'm kind of happy it didn't work out. That's just for selfish reasons.
Well, there was another thing. I saw this the other morning. So apparently, Draymond Green checked in to a game for Golden State, and then like basically fouled the guy who got the ball on the other side. And he was doing it just like in commemoration, I think, of like Klay Thompson coming back or something, and then sat out the rest of the game. But people like found this out right at the beginning or right before it was like about to happen or as it happened. And then everyone bet the under on every single under on minutes, under on points, under on like fouls, free throws, rebound, everything. Because they're like, we know he's not going to play for the rest of the game. And
wow.
Yeah, and it was this similar scenario that like,
oh my god,
they haven't figured out what they're going to do about it because like it's a messed up scenario. But yeah, bookies almost got screwed again.
I read that some paid out and then others are like disputing it because it's a known fact. So like obviously betting's also it's all based on like the probability of something happening. So if something's like guaranteed to happen and it's like known, they kind of have the right to say like you can't really bet on that because like if someone said like I'm not playing tonight, you can't bet okay this person's not going to play tonight and get all like not going to get any points sort of thing. So they're kind of disputing that based off the time the article came
I don't know,
out and
like
when people put their bets. Because if you did put your bet before like the article came out, like it's legit. But people that kind of because I know like they said like the article came out like minutes later, they took like those betting options off the books. So like for the people who did bet before, they pretty much got their money.
Yeah. Anyways, podcast is about to end, so I think that's all for tonight.